A brilliant woman's journey through the corporate world, where her talent is overshadowed by prejudice and bias, and her fight for recognition and justice. In the heart of New York City, a brilliant woman named Maria walked into the most crucial presentation of her career. Her emerald green blazer bright against her rich brown skin, Maria carried herself with quiet grace, though her shoulders held the slight tension of someone bracing for another difficult day. The boardroom was filled with the usual faces, but today, she felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Her campaign materials, meticulously prepared, lay before her. This was her moment to prove her exceptional talent. But along the way to what should have been her promotion, she encountered a challenge that would shatter her world. 5 board members who saw her skin color and body type as liabilities to their company image. "Face it, honey. Your fat black face doesn't belong in this company." These words sliced through the office like a blade as Maria stood frozen at her desk. What Janet didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man walking into the CEO elevator 2 floors above was about to become their worst nightmare. Because sometimes the person you destroy is married to the person who controls your fate. Maria had always known that the corporate world was tough, but she never imagined it would be this brutal. Her journey had been one of resilience and determination, a testament to her unwavering belief in her abilities. But today, she faced a battle she hadn't anticipated. The boardroom was a battlefield, and Maria was the unwitting soldier. As she stood before the panel, she could feel the weight of their judgments. Their eyes, cold and unyielding, seemed to pierce through her, questioning her very existence in that room. Maria took a deep breath, steeling herself for the fight ahead. She knew she had to stand her ground, to prove that her talent and dedication were more than enough to overcome their prejudices. But as the questions began, she realized that this was more than just a fight for a promotion. It was a fight for her dignity, for her self-worth, for the recognition she deserved. As the day wore on, Maria's resolve strengthened. She answered every question with confidence, her voice steady and sure, but she could see the skepticism in their eyes, the subtle nods of disapproval that hinted at their true feelings. She knew that winning this battle would not be easy, but she was ready to fight. Because Maria was not just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every woman who had been overlooked, for every person who had been told they were not good enough. And as she left the boardroom, she knew that no matter the outcome, she had already won. For she had proven to herself that she was worthy, that she was capable, and that she would never give up. The elevator door slid open on the 42nd floor of the skyscraper, revealing the polished marble lobby of Johnson & Associates Marketing. 28-year-old Maria Thompson stepped out, her emerald green blazer bright against her rich brown skin. She carried herself with quiet grace, though her shoulders held the slight tension of someone bracing for another difficult day. She approached the reception desk. "Good morning, Maria." Brad from reception, his smile genuine. At 62, he was one of the few people in the office who treated her with consistent respect. His weathered face showed years of witnessing office politics, and his kind eyes held understanding. "How's your grandson's soccer season going?" Maria's voice was warm, melodious, the kind that could soothe worried clients over the phone. "Won the championship yesterday. Kid's got a scholarship offer already, and he's only 15. Brad's pride glowed as he handed her the usual stack of client files. "You working on the Patterson campaign today?" "That's the plan." Maria's fingers traced the edges of the folders. The Patterson account was her baby, a community outreach campaign for a local nonprofit that she'd conceptualized from scratch. 3 months of late nights and weekend research had gone into the proposal sitting on her desk. As she walked through the open office space, conversation seemed to dim around her. Janet Murphy, the office queen bee, with her platinum blonde hair always perfectly styled, looked up from her corner desk with cold blue eyes. At 35, Janet had mastered the art of workplace manipulation. Her tailored navy dress and expensive jewelry marked her territory in the social hierarchy. Well, someone's looking confident today." Janet's voice carried just far enough for others to hear. Her red-painted lips curved into what could generously be called a smile. Maria kept walking, but her stomach tightened. "Just get to your desk. Do your work. Don't give them anything." Meanwhile, 15 mi away in Manhattan, 32-year-old Louis Mitchell stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his silver tie. His reflection showed a tall, athletic man with warm brown eyes and closely cropped hair. His chocolate skin smoothed over strong cheekbones. The charcoal gray suit fit him perfectly. Custom-tailored, though he'd never mentioned the price to Maria. Their apartment was modest but beautifully decorated, filled with Maria's artwork and plants that somehow thrived under her care. Family photos lined the hallway. Their wedding day 2 years ago. Both sets of parents' vacations where they'd laughed until their sides hurt. "Baby, you seen my cufflinks?" Louis called out, though he already knew where they were. He loved these small morning interactions, the domestic rhythm they built together. "Top drawer, left side, behind the watch case." Maria's voice drifted from the kitchen where she was packing lunches. Even from upstairs, he could hear her humming, something she only did when she was trying to calm herself. Louis found the platinum cufflinks, a wedding gift from Maria's father. and slipped them on. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. First contract signed. You're officially CEO effective 9 o'clock a.m. Board meeting at 10:00. He'd kept the promotion quiet, even from Maria. The timing had been sudden. The previous EO scandal breaking just as Luis was finishing his MBA at Columbia. The board's unanimous vote had surprised even him. 3 years of strategic consulting, 2 years building relationships, and now he was the youngest CEO in Johnson & Associates' 40-year history. Tell her tonight, he decided, pocketing the phone. Celebrate properly. Back at the office, Maria settled at her desk in the far corner, not by choice. The workspace assignments had been strategic, placing her away from the main action near the break room, where she'd overhear every casual insult disguised as office banter. She opened the Patterson file and spread the layouts across her desk. The campaign centered on youth mentorship, featuring diverse young faces filled with hope and determination. Every image had been carefully chosen, every word crafted to inspire action. This wasn't just a job for Maria, it was her chance to prove her worth in an industry that often overlooked people who looked like her. Maria, honey. Jane's voice cut through her concentration, Jane's manicured fingers already dismissing her. I'm actually deep in the Patterson presentation right now, maybe after I finish this section. Jane's smile turned razor sharp. Well, of course, the Patterson thing. How ambitious of you. The word ambitious came out like an insult loaded with implications that made Maria's chest tighten. Around them, other conversations continued, but she felt the weight of attention, the way certain ears perked up when conflict brewed. It's just that we all know your strengths lie more in support work. Jane continued, her voice honeyed with false concern. Client-facing campaigns require a certain image. There it is. Maria's hand stilled on the keyboard. The coded language. The careful dancing around what Jane really meant. Too black, too fat. Too different for their pristine company image. The campaign tests really well with focus groups, Maria said quietly, her voice steady despite the fire building in her chest. The community response has been overwhelming. Oh, I'm sure the community loves it. Jane's emphasis on community made it sound like a foreign country. But we have to think about broader appeal. Our clients expect a certain level of sophistication. What Jane wanted to say could have filled a book. What she actually said was, I'll get your coffee in 5 minutes. As she turned back to her computer, her phone buzzed with a text from Luis. Love you, beautiful. Hope your day is amazing. Can't wait to see you tonight. The message was like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. Luis saw her. Really saw her. He loved her curves, her brilliant mind, her fierce heart. In his arms, the office cruelty felt like distant noise from another planet. Love you too, she texted back. Something special planned for tonight. Maybe. Depends on how brave I'm feeling. Smiley face. Despite everything. Maria smiled. Luis' surprises were always worth waiting for. Maybe tonight she'd finally tell him about the promotion she'd been hoping for. The creative director position opening up next month. She'd been building toward it for 2 years. Every successful campaign adding to her portfolio. The office phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. Johnson & Associates. This is Maria Thompson. The voice was crisp, professional. Rebecca Chen from the board of directors. Could you come to conference room at 10:15? We'd like to discuss your work on the Patterson campaign. Maria's heart hammered. Board of directors, the Patterson campaign. This could be it. Recognition, advancement, respect. Of course, I'll be there. As she hung up, Jane appeared at her desk like a vulture sensing opportunity. Board meeting. How exciting. I'm sure they just want to clarify some things about campaign direction. The way Jane said clarify made it sound ominous, but Maria refused to let doubt creep in. Her work was solid, the campaign was brilliant, she belonged here no matter what anyone else thought. At 10:10, she gathered her presentation materials and walked toward conference room A. Her emerald blazer, a bright flag of determination. She had no way of knowing that in less than 5 minutes, her husband would be walking into the executive elevator 2 floors above, ready to take control of the company that had been slowly crushing her spirit. What do you think will happen when Luis discovers what his wife has been enduring? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Maria hadn't touched her lunch. The turkey sandwich Luis had packed for her sat untouched in its bright yellow container, the same one he'd been using to surprise her with little love notes since their first month of dating. Today's note read, "You're going to change the world today. I believe in you." Oh, the irony was suffocating. She stared at her computer screen, the cursor blinking in an empty email draft. How do you write a resignation letter when quitting feels like surrendering everything you've worked for? How do you explain to the man you love that his wife was considered an embarrassment to corporate America? Still here, I see. Jane's voice slithered across the office space. She approached Maria's desk wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Maria's monthly car payment. Her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the afternoon humidity. I heard about your meeting with the board. Of course she had. Office gossip traveled faster than wildfire, especially when it involved someone's downfall. Jane, I'm really not in the mood for conversation right now. Maria's voice was flat, drained of its usual warmth. Oh, honey, I'm not here to gloat. Jane perched on the edge of Maria's desk, her red manicured nails drumming against the wood. "I'm here to help." That got Maria's attention. Jane, helping anyone was like a shark offering swimming lessons. "Help? How?" "The research position they offered you. That's actually a smart move." Jane's voice took on the tone of someone dispensing wisdom to the unfortunate. "You can work behind the scenes. Contribute your unique insights without the pressure of client representation." Unique insights. Maria repeated the phrase, tasting the coded language that had been choking her all day. "You mean my black insights, my fat insights, my undesirable insights?" Jane's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. "I mean your cultural insights. There's value in diversity, Maria, just not necessarily in leadership roles." The casual cruelty of it took Maria's breath away. Jane wasn't even trying to hide behind corporate speak anymore. She was laying out the brutal truth of how the world saw her. Valuable enough to exploit, not valuable enough to elevate. The new CEO is going to want results. Jane pressed on. Fresh ideas, dynamic leadership, people who can represent the company at the highest levels. You could position yourself as a valuable contributor in the right role, or you could keep pushing for something that's never going to happen and find yourself out entirely. The threat was clear. Take the demotion or lose everything. Meanwhile, 2 floors above, Luis was experiencing his own form of resistance. The executive conference room buzzed with the kind of energy that came from new leadership and old politics colliding. 6 department heads sat around the polished table, each one sizing up their new boss while protecting their own territories. "The 4 numbers look strong," reported Financial Director Robert Hayes, a silver-haired man who'd been with the company since its founding. "But we need to address some inefficiencies in the creative department." "What kind of inefficiencies?" Luis asked, pen poised over his legal pad. He'd learned early in his consulting career that the real information came in the details people tried to skim over. "Personnel issues," chimed in her director Carol Brennan. "Some staff members who aren't quite fitting with our evolving brand vision." Luis' eyebrows rose. "Fitting how?" The department heads exchanged glances. That familiar dance of corporate communication where everyone understood the subtext but nobody wanted to say it directly. "Client feedback," Robert explained carefully. "Some of our account representatives have expressed concerns about team composition on client-facing projects." "I need specifics," Lee said, his voice taking on an edge that made several people shift in their seats. "Are we talking about performance issues, skill gaps? What exactly are we addressing?" Another round of glances. Carol cleared her throat. "It's more about market positioning, ensuring our teams reflect the aspirational qualities our clients expect." The corporate speak was making Louis' head hurt. "Are you telling me we're making staffing decisions based on appearance?" "We're making strategic decisions based on brand alignment," Robert replied smoothly. "Johnson and Associates has always maintained certain standards of presentation and cultural fit." Luis leaned back in his chair, studying the faces around the table. Something was happening here. Something that made his consultant instincts tingle with warning signals. "I want to review all personnel files," he said finally, starting with the creative department. "I want to see performance metrics. Client feedback, project outcomes, everything." "Of course," Carol nodded quickly, "though you should know we've already identified some positions for restructuring lateral moves that would better utilize certain employee skill sets." "Whose skill sets?" "Well, there's one junior executive who's been struggling with client interface issues. Maria Thompson, talented researcher, but perhaps better suited for behind-the-scenes work." Luis went very still. The name hit him like a physical blow. But he kept his expression neutral through years of consulting training. These people didn't know he was married. Didn't know that the woman they were casually dismissing was the person who made his world make sense. "Maria Thompson," he repeated carefully. "What kind of struggles?" "Cultural alignment issues." Tom Walsh jumped in. "She's worked on some niche campaigns that haven't quite fit our broader market strategy. The board has recommended transitioning her to research where her particular perspective might be more appropriately utilized." Luis felt something cold and dangerous settling in his chest. He'd heard this language before in boardrooms and strategy sessions where people's lives got reduced to market considerations and demographic calculations. "I see," he said quietly, "and this recommendation came from the board." "This morning actually," Carol confirmed. "Very timely, given your arrival. Clean slate, fresh direction, optimal team composition." Luis nodded slowly, but inside a storm was building. His wife. They were talking about his brilliant, talented, beautiful wife like she was a problem to be managed rather than an asset to be valued. "I'll want to review her files personally," he said, along with the specifics of this board recommendation. "Of course, though the matter is fairly straightforward, sometimes these transitions are best handled quickly before expectations become unrealistic." Back on the main office floor, Maria was packing up her desk. Not permanently, not yet, but she needed to take some time to think without Jane's voice drilling into her skull or the board's casual cruelty echoing in her ears. Her phone buzzed with a text from Luis. "How was your day?" "Beautiful. Mine's been full of surprises. Can't wait to share everything with you tonight." She stared at the message, tears blurring the words. How could she tell him? How could she explain that while he was celebrating success, she was being systematically erased? He'd be furious, would want to fight, would probably do something that could hurt his own advancement. One day she texted back, "Tell me about your surprises when you get home. Are you okay? You sound off." Even through text, he could read her moods. After 3 years together, Luis knew her rhythms better than anyone. "Just tired. See you tonight." She slipped her phone into her purse and gathered the Patterson campaign materials. Whatever happened next, she wasn't leaving her work behind. Those faces. Those stories that hope she'd captured in every image and word that belonged to her. Leaving early, Jane's voice followed her toward the elevator, probably for the best. Big change is coming, and it's always easier to adapt when you're not fighting the tide. Maria didn't respond. The elevator doors closed on Jane's satisfied smile, carrying Maria down and away from the battlefield where her career was bleeding out. As the elevator descended, Luis was studying personnel files in his corner office, each page revealing a pattern that made his blood pressure rise. Stellar performance reviews, innovative campaigns, client praise, and then suddenly vague language about fit and alignment. He pulled up the Patterson Foundation campaign on his computer, the one Carol had mentioned as an example of Maria's niche work. The screen filled with images of young faces, diverse and hopeful, surrounded by copy that was both inspiring and authentic. The engagement metrics were outstanding. The client testimonials glowed with praise. This wasn't niche work. This was brilliant work. Luis picked up his phone and dialed his assistant. "Patricia, I need you to set up individual meetings with every member of the creative team starting tomorrow morning, and I want copies of all board recommendations from the past month." "Certainly, Mr. Mitchell. Any particular focus for these meetings?" "I want to understand how we evaluate talent in this company, and I want to know why we're considering moving our best performers into positions where they can't perform." After Maria left, Luis sat alone in his office, the weight of what he was uncovering settling heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just about Maria, though her situation was the most personal and infuriating. The entire company seemed built on a foundation of systemic exclusion. Talented people being sorted into tracks based on coded assessments that had nothing to do with their actual abilities. His phone rang, interrupting his dark thoughts. "Mr. Mitchell, it's Patricia. Your wife called. She wanted you to know she's having lunch with the Patterson Foundation about a consulting opportunity." Luis felt a complicated mix of pride and concern. Maria was already exploring other options, which showed her resilience and talent, but it also meant she was preparing to leave Johnson and Associates, possibly taking her brilliant mind somewhere his new company couldn't benefit from it. "Did she leave any other message?" "She said to tell you that she loves you and she'll see you tonight." "Oh, and she said something about not waiting for permission to build the career she deserves." That sounded exactly like the Maria he'd fallen in love with. The woman who'd started their first conversation by challenging his assumptions about marketing demographics. The woman who'd convinced him to volunteer at a literacy program in the Bronx, opening his eyes to communities he'd never truly understood. The woman who made him want to be better, fairer, more conscious of the world beyond his own experience. Luis pulled out his phone and scrolled through their text history, stopping at a conversation from 6 months ago. "Maria, sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a war nobody else can see." "Luis, what do you mean?" Maria had asked. "Like I'm proving myself over and over again, but the goalposts keep moving. Like being twice as good only gets me half as far." "Maria, that's not fair." "Luis, fair doesn't factor into it, baby. It's just reality." "Maria, then we change reality." "Luis, easier said than done." "Maria, nothing worthwhile is easy." Reading those messages now, Luis realized he'd been naive about the scope of what Maria faced every day. He'd known workplace discrimination existed in abstract terms, but he hadn't understood the daily erosion of confidence that came from being systematically undervalued. The constant pressure to prove worthiness for opportunities that others took for granted. But now he was in a position to do more than offer sympathy and encouragement. He had the power to change the system that had been grinding down his wife and countless others. Luis opened his laptop and began typing an email to the board of directors. "I'm calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock a.m. We need to discuss immediate changes to our personnel evaluation processes and advancement criteria." He paused, considering his next words carefully. This was the moment where he stopped being a cautious new CEO and started being the man who'd promised his wife that love could win in corporate boardrooms. "The current system is not only ethically problematic but legally vulnerable. I'll be presenting evidence of discriminatory practices that put the company at serious risk. This is not a discussion I'm willing to postpone." As he hit send, Luis thought about Maria sitting in Wildbury Cafe, probably charming the Patterson Foundation team with her passion and brilliance. She was building her own path forward with or without Johnson and Associates. But he was going to make sure she didn't have to choose between her marriage and her career. Some battles were worth fighting regardless of the cost.